Mr. Cellini here, and welcome to my first lesson recap video for World History 9 Honors. Okay, this is my first video in a series of videos that I plan on doing just about after every single lesson to kind of give you a quick recap on what we've done in class, and this should be especially beneficial to those of you who are full-time remote learners. Okay, so each one of these videos corresponds with a particular worksheet that we've done in class. And this first one is going to correspond with the worksheet that we did on the second section of Chapter 1 in our textbook. Let's take a look at what we did in class today. Alright, so like I said, welcome to my first lesson recap video. I just want to take a few minutes to go over the key points from the worksheet that we covered in class today. Today is Tuesday, September 29th. I'm recording this the day I taught it with the orange crew. The blue crew already had this worksheet, so both classes can watch this now to kind of review what we did in class. Alright, so after we went over some of the key vocabulary and concepts you did not understand, we took a look at a map and some multiple choice questions, but I just want to dig a little bit into the content of the chapter first, okay? And the whole point of this lesson was to kind of really just describe the way of life of humans during what we call the Paleolithic time period. That's a word that's hard for me to say, so if I stumble over that, I apologize in advance. Paleolithic, okay? Paleolithic is the old Stone Age. We're talking pretty much all of human history up until the invention of farming. All right, so that's pretty much all of human history up till like 8000 BCE. That's a very, very long time period. Okay, so we're looking to describe in generalities here how humans lived. And humans lived a very, very simple existence throughout much of that time period. Okay, so that first question, we went over it in class. What characterized the Paleolithic time period? We're just looking at the main features of human life. Okay, so for us, hunting and gathering / nomadic lifestyle is the way of life during the Paleolithic time period, okay? With minor exceptions, the vast majority of humans, this is how they lived, okay? They went from place to place following their sources of food, okay? That's the key feature of the Paleolithic time period. And we also talked a little bit about the social sciences. Okay, so history is just one of several social sciences. There's historian, archaeologist, anthropologist. Okay, and the social scientist that's digging up literally prehistory is the archaeologist. So keep that in mind. We don't have written records from this time period. Writing doesn't become a thing until Mesopotamia, sometime in the fourth millennium, BCE. All right, so until that point, all we're doing is digging things up, artifacts and fossils, and trying to make solid inferences about the past. Okay, so artifact being something that's tangible, that's made by a human being, and a fossil being the actual physical human remains. Between those two things, archaeologists try to make inferences about how humans lived before writing systems were invented. Okay, so number 2 talks about the concept of egalitarian society. Egalitarian, that's a very, very important word for us. And it basically means that people have relative equality during the Paleolithic time period. There are no distinctions between genders, like meaning men do not dominate over women in life or vice versa. And there are no differences with regards to social classes. Everyone's pretty much the same. And there are a lot of reasons for that. Think about the ways that we differentiate between each other in the modern world. All right, perhaps certain jobs carry a higher status than other types of jobs. Like maybe brain surgeon, right, is above me as the social studies teacher. So we have different jobs that differentiate us in terms of social status, wealth and possessions. These are things that just simply did not exist during that time period, right? A hunting and gathering economy prevents the accumulation of private property. If I have to move from place to place, I can't bring my stuff with me. It's just not feasible. Okay, so even if there were cool things to acquire during this time period, which there weren't, but if there were, you're not taking them with you. Okay, in the modern world, this is less of an issue. Okay, if I had no cash in my pocket, I could still bring my possessions with me. Just throw them in a car and drive to my next destination. But before the advent of all those things, you're just not bringing those things with you. Okay, so in the Paleolithic time period, the general rule of thumb is that people were roughly equal. We're going to call that egalitarianism. And even between the sexes, okay, the textbook makes some claims about why that might be the case. And they argue that since men and women were both important contributors to the food supply, that's the reason why one sex did not dominate over the other. Okay, think about it. Like, the men are not going on a hunt unless they have calories in their system that would enable them to go on such an adventure. Okay, so since men and women relied upon each other, we threw another word out there today, interdependence. I'll put that down here. Okay, interdependence is this idea that people rely on each other. No one is independent, and because of that strong interdependence, men could not dominate over women, and there were no distinctions between social classes. There were no social classes. Okay, that will change with the advent of farming, but we're talking right now about the Paleolithic time period. How did people organize themselves during the Paleolithic era? Okay, well, that might be a little bit of a confusing question, as we saw it in class, but think about how people organize themselves today. We organize ourselves into villages, towns, counties, states, governments, like the federal government. Okay, so in this time period, none of that stuff existed. Okay, in this time period, people organized themselves simply into groups of 30 to 50, probably tied together through family, okay, moving from place to place in search of food. There were no governments, towns, counties, countries. All that stuff did not exist yet. Kind of weird to think about, right? Paleolithic settlement is kind of an oxymoron, right? Because I just said that Paleolithic means people move from place to place. But I'm calling this now a Paleolithic settlement. And there were a couple of little hotspots towards the end of the Paleolithic time period. The last ice age ended roughly 15,000 years ago. And then the Earth began this warming trend, okay? And with increased temperatures comes more food, just naturally occurring throughout the planet, like wheat growing naturally and more animal life. Okay, so in some spots, whether that's like the Jomon Society in Japan, or perhaps the Natufian Society in like modern day, like the Middle East, in these couple of places, there was enough food around that I did not me personally, but people did not have to move from place to place. So they would settle in these parts of the world, okay, because the food was so abundant. And then eventually, because people would make observations about, how the plants kind of come back every spring and, what might happen if seeds were left in the ground for a while, people gradually would discover agriculture, okay? And that's the next phase. But first we have Paleolithic settlements. So I hope you notice like this gradual trend here, right? We have complete hunting and gathering, planet warms up, some people start to settle down, they start to make observations, and then what we'll talk about next time is people start figuring out how to farm. And that's one of the biggest turning points in human history. And we'll talk about that word turning point more in the coming days. It's a very important one for us. How did Neanderthals demonstrate a capacity for emotions and feelings? We didn't talk much about Neanderthals, but for a considerably long period of human history, there were multiple human species on the planet at the same time. Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. Neanderthals primarily concentrated in what you call Western Europe today, like France and Germany. Okay, and archaeologists discovered that the Neanderthals buried their dead with great care. Perhaps their arms were crossed. There was evidence of like flowers being buried with them. All right, so the fact that people were buried in this manner, we're making inferences, right? Perhaps they cared for people's emotions and feelings. Perhaps they wanted them to lay to rest in a careful manner. Perhaps even they believed in an afterlife that people were being prepared for. Okay, so again, the important part of this is that whether it's Neanderthal or Homo sapien, okay, these people were definitely different than the other great apes of the planet, by far. All right? Number 6, what values were reflected in the art produced by Homo sapiens? 2 types of art that we talked about in class. The Venus figurines, okay, I showed you the picture from the textbook, and cave art. And in general, it's an important theme. The art that people create reflects their values and what's important to them. So think about what's important to Paleolithic humans. Really just a couple of things. Fertility, meaning perpetuating the human species through reproduction, and the big hunt. So in the caves, you have cave paintings using probably blood mostly as paint, or other crushed stones into powder. Use those things as paint and paint the animals on the walls. That's what's important to you. The textbook makes this claim that people maybe were looking to channel the spirit of the animal to gain control over it so that they could take it down more easily in the hunt the next day. Never going to know for sure, but it's an interesting hypothesis. And with regards to Venus, the Venus figurines, fertility is important, right? Think about how fragile human life was in the Paleolithic time period. Anything could do these people in, right? Just a pack of wolves, really bad weather, whatever it might be. So the idea that the human species, should go on was important in keeping each other safe. All right, so fertility, an important value of early humans, and that's reflected in the exaggerated features of the Venus figurines. And that's going to be like a continuity throughout human history, okay? So even when we shift towards agriculture, that won't change. People will still care about fertility, not just human fertility, but also the fertility of the crops. And Venus figurines will continue, and people will continue painting images that reflect their values with regards to fertility. Okay, so let's take a look at this map that we talked about in class today. Early human migration. It shows me a bunch of spots, and then it shows me a bunch of arrows. And if you were to look around this map and look at all the years, you'll find, after some observations, that the oldest dot says 3.6 million years ago, okay? And that's over here in the eastern portion of Africa, just like we said in the textbook. That's where your textbook author claims humans began. All right, and then I have arrows pointing outward from that original dot with years attached to them. So if I go from East Africa to what we'd call Saudi Arabia today, humans migrated over the course of almost 2 million years. They went from East Africa up into modern-day Saudi Arabia. Okay, so that took a really long time to get that done. But then migration accelerated, okay? 600,000 years ago, 14,000 years ago. But it's still gradual. We're talking thousands and thousands of years until humans arrive in what you'd call, Brazil today, 12,000 years ago. All right, so let's take a look at these two multiple choice questions that we talked about in class. Rule of thumb, okay, for AP style questions, because that's what I'm giving you. I'm giving you questions from AP review books, right? It's my job to prepare you for AP World History 10 and ultimately the AP exam. And yes, these topics we're going over right now will not be on the AP exam, but we have to get comfortable answering these styles of questions. All right, so which of the following conclusions can be supported by the map? Meaning, which one of these statements is aligned with the map, or rather, can the map prove any of these statements to be accurate? All right, use process of elimination, and in class we got it down to these two choices, B and C, and we said that one of these choices is better than the other. And that's the thing with these questions, folks, is that oftentimes you'll get two questions that could be potentially correct. You still have to pick the best one. All right, even if two might sound like they could be accurate, there's always going to be one that's better. So here we have human migration occurred gradually from Africa to Eurasia and then to the Americas. You're going to see that word Eurasia a lot. It's just simply referring to Europe and Asia in one landmass. Or choice C says, migrations occurred relatively rapidly due to the need to find additional resources. Okay? If we had to pick one, we're going to say choice B here, because migration occurred gradually, right? Over the course of 2 million, it took 2 million years for humans to go from East Africa to Saudi Arabia. That's not a far distance, and yet that's a very, very long period of time. Okay? So keep that in mind. B is the better answer. All right? D says humans originated in Eastern Asia. We know already that's not true, but even if we didn't, we could we could see that on the map. East Asia is right here. That's 600,000 years ago. But 3.6 million years ago is over here in Africa. Right, so that shows us that the Africa dot, or the Africa, as the map key says, origins of fossils found, this is older. If you look at my mouse cursor, this is older than this. So that answer choice, D, cannot be true. All right? Choice A says humans failed to migrate into areas of North America until the end of the Ice Age. Well, I said the Ice Age ended roughly 15,000 years ago. Okay? Well, it looks like humans got down there during the Ice Age. This is 12,000 years ago, 11,000 years ago, 15,000. Look, the Ice Age just ended, okay? And humans are in Alaska. So something had to have happened for them to get there. The Ice Age was still going on, all right? So the years don't really match up, right? They got there during the Ice Age, so that doesn't really work. And also, too, think about it. When the Ice Age ends, the planet warms up and the water levels rise. That means the land bridges disappear and humans can't migrate easily from one region to another, okay? So for those two reasons, choice D, in this particular question, question 1, choice A, that's, that's going to be incorrect. All right, let's look at number 2. Which of the following most directly contributed to the movement of people as reflected on the map? Kind of tough because the map doesn't give us the answer directly, but it's connected to the map, okay? So the map shows human beings migrating over the course of years, all right? So what the question is asking, what caused that to happen? What contributed to the movement of people? Another way to say that is what caused the movement of people. Excuse me. Humans domesticated draft animals. A draft animal is an animal that we can use to ride or to work on the fields. And domesticate an animal means to trap an animal, tame it, supervise its breeding and its feeding, okay, in order to have control over it. Paleolithic humans did not domesticate animals. This does not happen until roughly 10,000 years ago or 8,000 BCE. Okay, so for that reason alone, we cannot pick choice A. Paleolithic humans did not do that. All right, and all these years show me Paleolithic time periods. Okay, so I knew we're talking about Paleolithic times because even 12,000 years ago, we're still in Paleolithic times. So choice A cannot be correct. Choice B, adoption of agriculture led to the growth and movement of early human populations. Agriculture is farming, all right? And we didn't see, first of all, there was no farming mentioned in the chapter so far, so it can't be true because of that. And as you'll see going forward, when people start to farm, they move less. They stay in one spot. So farming would not cause people to keep moving. Farming would cause people to stay in one spot. So we have to dismiss choice B. All right, and then C, early humans responded to strains on local resources, which may have precipitated migration. Another fancy way of saying cause migration or give way to migration, all right? Local resources just means like the plant and animal life, the flora and the fauna in that region. So C sounds plausible to me. I run out of resources, I move to the next spot. But let's go to choice D just to make sure. The end of the last ice age allowed early humans to move more easily from one region to another. Just like with choice 1, this does not make sense, okay? When the ice age ends, water levels rise and migrations are more difficult. So I can't pick choice D. So our best answer here is C, okay? If the animal population or the flora disappear, I have to pick up and move, right? That's what we said. Hunting and gathering, aka nomadic societies, move from place to place in search of food. All right, so this is everything we covered in class today, and also for the Blue Crew who I saw on Friday. All right, so stay tuned for more lesson updates, and I hope these help you guys out.